Right, start.
Yes, good afternoon to all of you, my dear friends. And thank you, Professor, for inviting me to speak on this subject. The subject or the topic I have given to speak on is what the Buddha taught about governance. In fact, actually, before I speak, I want to say a few words about this topic. In fact, when the professor invited me to speak on a subject and choose a subject, uh, what I suggested as the topic was what the Buddha taught about politics, because from the Colombo IMBA and many other fora I attend, I have been talking about this subject, this topic, but we termed it what the Buddha talked about governance, and I thought that would be more palatable to the listeners. And having said that, what I wish to say right at the beginning is when we talk about what the Buddha taught about politics, it is very difficult to avoid the use of word politics, because Buddhism is being researched, studied from a political theory angle as well, and it has been an area of an interesting area of study. So, but I will try to focus on the governance aspect of it, but I am afraid that I will probably, veer off a little bit. But if somebody wants to interrupt, please do so. Raise your hand, please interrupt and make your comments. I think right at the outset, to take a good approach to this topic, it is interesting to, or it is important to say that, okay, why I have chosen this topic to speak on in the recent past is that when we speak with people about the social, religious, social, economic, and political situation of this country, some people I have come across say that we are interested in Dhamma and we are not interested in governance or politics. So that is why actually I have chosen this topic as a topic to speak on. Now, from that point of view, it is very, very important to understand what Dhamma is, what is meant by Dhamma, different meanings of the word Dhamma according to Buddhist terminology. And also it is important to understand what governance means and what politics means. Now, according to the Oxford Dictionary, governance is the action or manner of governing a state or an organization. Action or manner of governing a state or an organization is governance. But politics is the activities associated with the governance of a country or an area, especially the debate between parties having powers. Now, it's important to understand the difference between governance and politics here, because governance is not restricted to a country, governing of a country. Governance also applies to governing an organization, running an organization. Now, when I manage organizations, the governance of that organization is important to our stakeholders. But politics is specially relating to governing a country or a geographical area. So that way, Buddhist teachings, what I want to focus on is basically governance of a country, governance of a state, governance of a particular geographical area, and what the Buddha taught about governance of a state, a country, and a geographical area. So from that point of view, it is important for us to understand what Dhamma means, the meaning of Dhamma, the different meanings of the word Dhamma. Now, actually, a lot of people have tried to understand and catalog and group the different meanings of the word Dhamma in Buddhist terminology. Now, for several decades, a lot of scholars have gone into this subject, try to understand, try to catalog, try to group different meanings of the word Dhamma. Now, among them, these scholars stand out: Magdalene, Wilhelm Geiger, Scherbatsky, John Ross, I.B. Horner, Lamotte, Edward Conze, Robert Childers, Spence Hardy, Rice David, Burnoff, Herman Oldenburg, Beck, Glassenham. Now, there are so many scholars who have tried to understand the word Dhamma, what it means, and they have tried to catalog it, they have tried to group it. So that means actually it has a very wide meaning. It has wide meanings, and it has a very wide range of meanings, the word Dhamma. Now, the first meaning of the word Dhamma is obviously teachings of the Buddha. Now, teachings of the Buddha, as you know, are classified into various classifications. There are various classifications of the words of or the teachings of Buddha. One classification is what we call the first classification, one-fold in terms of the taste of teachings. We say taste is the same in all teachings. It's a taste of freedom, taste of emancipation, like the taste of the ocean being salty. So that is one classification. Then the second classification is Dhamma and Vinaya as twofold, then threefold as Pitakas, then fivefold as Nikayas, then ninefold as limbs, and 84,000 as units. And of course, then you have the first word, middle word, and the last words also threefold, the meaning of Dhamma. Then the second meaning these scholars have unearthed in Buddhist teachings is the good conduct and putting it into practice. Now, here comes our subject. Now, good conduct and putting that good conduct into practice relating mostly to rule of kings, typical usage of political philosophy of righteous rule, proper taxation, rule of law, social order, and kings are described as duty-bound to rule justly. So that is another meaning of the word Dhamma. Then Dhamma is all, third meaning is Dhamma is all different phenomena that cannot be further classified. These phenomena can be broken down to, as you well know, Sankata and Asankata, conditionally arisen and unconditionally arisen. That is another meaning of the word Dhamma. Then the fourth meaning is the truth realized by the practice of the path, mainly the fourth noble truths. That is also a meaning of Dhamma. Then any particular quality one possesses, it could be being honest, being full of integrity, maybe even bad qualities like vicious, or maybe full of hatred, or whatever. Any quality that one possesses is also termed as Dhamma. And then natural order of things. Natural order of things is basically the law of nature, how things happen. And law of nature, Swabhava Dharma, is basically a meaning attached to the word Dhamma. And then basic mental and physical state of things, meaning 5 hindrances, 5 aggregates, 6 sense bases, 7 factors of enlightenment, 4 noble truths, etc. Then what is arising and falling is also Dhamma. Then things that are known, what we call theory, is Dhamma. Things that are concepts is Dhamma. In Rig Veda, authority of Varuna and Mitra is Dhamma. In Sanskrit, Dhamma means hold or bear. Those are the, so in Buddhist terms, there are about 10, 11 different classifications or meanings. And then in Sanskrit, there is this hold or bear, the meaning of the word Dhamma. And according to Rig Veda, it's the authority of Varuna and Mitra, specifically meant as Dhamma. But as you know, in Buddhist terminology, the meaning of Dhamma is very vast, and it captures almost everything, in this universe. So it is not possible, if you really see, for somebody to say, I am only interested in Dhamma, I am not interested in maybe governance or politics or social science or anything else, that I am only interested in Dhamma. If somebody is saying that, in my opinion, that person does not know the word, the meaning of the word Dhamma. So everything, Dhamma captures, the meaning of Dhamma captures everything that we come across. So that is the opening to my discussion, because there is no room for anybody to say that I am not interested in politics or governance or anything else, and I am only interested in Dhamma. I mean, somebody is saying that, that means he has not captured the word, the meaning of the word Dhamma. So, so then thereafter, what I want to say is that for a lay, in Buddhist teachings, for a lay society to prosper, economic prosperity is a must. It's a prerequisite, because without economic prosperity, there is, it is very, very difficult for a person in home life to achieve spiritual progress. That is why in Vyaggapacca Sutta, Uttana Sampada, Arakshana Sampada, Kalyana Mitta Sampada, I mean, you have to energetically strive to accumulate wealth. And Adya Sutta, benefits of wealth. Anana Sutta, once again, talks about wealth creation. Inna Sutta specifically says, for the poor, poverty itself is the suffering. Nothing else is the suffering for the poor, but it's the poverty itself. Ida bhikkave dukkang lokasmin gihina kama bogino. So in a sutta, Buddha specifically says, for a lay person, for a poor person, poverty itself is the biggest suffering. So it is very, very difficult for a person to achieve spiritual progress unless he or she is not economically stable and sound. Then once again, Vadi Sutta specifically speaks about how to create wealth and how men folk and also women folk should strive to create wealth and protect wealth. And then Anda Sutta specifically says, ideal lay person is economically prosperous and a pious person. He specifically says the two qualities of a ideal lay person is he should be economically prosperous and he should be pious or virtuous. So once again, the Buddha speaks very highly of the importance of being economically stable if you are in lay life or home life. Then in Papanika Sutta, once again, in Anguttara Nikaya, Buddha specifically speaks about how to create wealth through business. If you are doing business, how to create wealth, you have to having a sharp eye to identify business opportunities. If you are a manufacturer, how do you produce at the right cost, not the lowest cost, the right cost? If you are a trader, how do you buy at the right price? Then how do you keep a reasonable margin and fix the selling price? And how do you conduct your business in a manner that earns the trust and confidence of others, what we call corporate governance today? So basically, Buddha has very, very emphatically spoken about the importance of being economically stable and prosperous if you are in lay life. And then once again, when it comes to the Noble Eightfold Path also, Samma Ajiva specifically speaks about what industries to be in, what you should do, what you should not do. And that is basically one factor that will lead you down the proper path. Then once again in Mahamangala Sutta on blessings, also the Buddha speaks about the importance of being economically prosperous and the importance of engaging in right industries. And once again, Vyaggapacca Sutra, Singhala Sutta, once again, it speaks about basically as a whole, how do you send a person from birth to your adult life? How do you send a person through the cycle of life and bring out that person as a economically sound, virtuous person to the society. How do you introduce a person to the society as an economically prosperous and a virtuous person is what Singhala Sutta speaks about, and it is not confined to, as a lot of people mistakenly believe, 56 duties and responsibility. That is only a small part of Singhala Sutta, but the large part of Singhala Sutta, 90% of Singhala Sutta is about how do you send a person through the cycle of life, from birth to the adult life, and bring him out as a good citizen to the society. And then, so there is no doubt that economic theory is very profound in Buddhist teachings. Now, then we come to this important matter. Now, actually, not only in Buddhism, but in Catholicism, Islam, Hinduism, all these religions, the religious teachings can be described as a triangle. On top is the spiritual well-being of a person. So this is the triangle of religious thought. Any religious thought has this triangle. You have the spiritual path. Spiritual path in Buddhism means basically, as we learn, three characteristics, 4 noble truths, then 8 noble eightfold path, and then dependent co-origination. I mean, basically, that is the spiritual path described in Buddhism. And then, of course, then in Catholicism, how to go to heaven. In Islam, how to go to heaven. Then in Hinduism also, how to go to heaven is basically described in the spiritual path of the respective religions. Then in this triangle on the left-hand side, we have the economic theory. That is on top is the spiritual theory, and then on the left-hand side, I would say, is the economic theory, because in all religions, economic prosperity is valued so much, because without economic prosperity in any religion, there is very little room. I wouldn't say no room, but there is very little room for a person to advance spiritually. That is why the Buddha, in all discourses delivered to lay society, lay people, he had always spoken about the importance of being rich, importance of accumulating wealth. Like in, as I said, Adya Sutta, Anda Sutta, Vyagapajja Sutta, Anana Sutta, Papanika Sutta, Vaddi Sutta, all these suttas where he had delivered teachings or discourses to lay people, or to the lay society, it's always focusing on the virtues of economic prosperity. And without economic prosperity, as the Buddha quite rightly say in Inner Sutta, without economic prosperity, there is very little room for a person to advance spiritually if he or she is in home life. That is very important to understand. It doesn't apply to recluses or hermits or monks, but it applies to people in home life, where very, very profoundly the Buddhism speaks about the importance of achieving economic prosperity to advance spiritually. Then comes the third part, which is the political theory of religions. It's not only in Buddhism, in Catholicism, John Howard Yoder, the theologian, in 1972 wrote this book, Politics of Jesus. So, I mean, it's not governance of Jesus, but politics of Jesus. And that also speaks about the political theory of Catholicism. And then in Islam, Quran specifically talks about the political theory, politics in a country, how as citizens should engage in politics. Then Hinduism also speaks about political theory, the governance of country, how the government should behave, the rulers should behave, and the importance of having righteous kings is very profound in Hinduism. So it's a triangle. Unless this triangle properly works, it is not possible for lay people to advance in spiritual life, because economic prosperity can be achieved only if the government is ruling righteously. If the government is not behaving righteously, if the government is not ethical, if there is no rule of law, people cannot achieve economic prosperity. If economic prosperity cannot be achieved, then people cannot advance spiritually, and spiritual advancement is only a dream for a lot of people. So I wouldn't say it's not possible, but it's very, very remotely possible for a person in economic poverty to advance spiritually. And then, Professor, I am sorry, I have to use this word, politics and political, because that is how it comes. So if any of the members of the audience is uncomfortable, please raise the hand, right? And then if you take Buddhist teachings, political theories have largely ignored Buddhism. All thus far, political theories have largely ignored Buddhism. However, in Buddhism, there is literature on normative political theory. Normative political theory, there is a lot of literature in Buddhism. There are actually, in this political theory of Buddhism, there are 3 distinct debates in Buddhism that are interesting for political theories. It is important to understand what these debates are, because I mean, nobody is saying that Buddhism clearly speaks about politics. Nobody is saying Buddhism is solely concerned about economics. But it's, as I said, it's a triangle, and they are all intertwined and interdependent. So it's important to understand what areas interest political theories, especially when it comes to Buddhism. The first is whether there is a theory of government at all in Buddhism. That is also a debate. Some people are arguing that there is no political theory in Buddhism. Or the comment, but of course there are comment on politics. Buddha had commented on politics. So there the question is, the comments on politics are for easy understanding of parables, similes, or illustrations. So some people think the political comments made by the Buddha are just for illustrations, similes, and parables. Now, actually, one scholar stands out in this theory. The scholar is Max Weber. Max Weber very influentially argued that Buddhism is entirely unconcerned with politics. His argument was Buddhism has nothing to do with politics, Max Weber. Now, the contemporaries, however, contemporary scholars like Stanley Tambaya, Stephen Collins, Richard Gard argued that politics at least plays some role, or some others argue a big role in early Buddhist teachings. So that is also important to understand. The first theory, a lot of people argued that, try to argue that the Buddhism is largely unconcerned about politics. Then the second debate is that there is general understanding that early political theory of Buddhism supports monarchy, while a handful of scholars argued that there is a detectable preference for republicanism in Buddhism, especially in Parinibbana Sutta. Now, people who argued that there is some reference, at least Buddhism is a little concerned about politics. They argued that from the point of view of whether Buddhism is supporting any particular system of government, monarchy or republican system, monarchical or republican system of government. Then the third thing is the third debate is that significance of politics within Buddhism overall should be evaluated and unearthed, because others argue that the political theory in Buddhism has still not been unearthed, and it has to be studied and evaluated because there has not been enough studies into the political theory of Buddhism. Now, actually, I should say that these arguments come out in these books written by these scholars, the following scholars: Buddhism and Politics. That's why actually I'm saying it's very difficult for me to use only the word governance, but I have to use the word politics because that is how it has been documented and studied. So Buddhism and Politics in the 12th Century Asia by Harris. Then Political Theory of Ancient India, Spellman. Then Buddhism and Political Theory by Richard Gard. Then Dhamma as a Political Concept by Gokal. Then Buddhist Conception of Universal King by Stanley Tambaya. Then When Manu Met Mahasammata by Huxley. And then the latest work on this Buddhism and political theory is by Matthew J. Moore, a living US professor of economics in California. So that is the latest book I found, written in 2016. So there are lots of material if one is interested in going into this area, which is a very, very interesting area I have found to study, for further study. If one is interested, you can refer these books and you can find a lot of material. And of course, you can come to your own conclusion whether politics is largely, Buddhism is largely unconcerned about politics or very much concerned about politics. So then politics, so actually one thing that comes out in some of these books is that politics and salvation are inseparable in Buddhist theory, and politics is central to Buddhism. Some people argue that as that triangle works, as I described earlier on, spiritual theory, economic theory, and political theory, politics and salvation, politics and nirvana, achieving nirvana, spiritual progress are inseparable in Buddhist theory, and politics is central to Buddhism. That is one argument. Politics is central to Buddhism. There is no way you can separate politics from Buddhism. And then here, now Matthew J. Moore in his latest work is arguing in a different way. Politics is distinctly secondary to individual entitlement. He argues that politics is there, but it is secondary to individual enlightenment in home life and a homeless life. Now here, actually the emphasis is individual enlightenment. Individual, and if you take individual enlightenment, he says politics is not primary but secondary. We'll come to that later. And then, however, he also argues, actually most of these scholars argue, except Max Weber, lay community has an important responsibility to contribute to political welfare of the society. That is one conclusion that comes out from most of these works. Then, as I said, religious theory is a triangle, because a triangle being spiritual, economic, and political. Now, what we have to understand is, if there is no government, anarchy and social disorder will prevail. There is no doubt about that. I don't think anybody will dispute the fact that if there is no government, if there is no exercise of political authority, there will be anarchy in any society, and social disorder will prevail, and the society will get destroyed through social strife. Then economic degradation will cause collapse of human society. No doubt about that. Economic degradation definitely will cause the collapse of human society. Then exercise of political authority is central to functioning of a moral society. Moral society cannot be built unless there is political authority. So only through moral society, spiritual progress is possible. And individual salvation is not the only concept of Buddhism. Now, that is also very important to understand when we talk about the governance of a country and political environment of a country, because individual salvation is not the only concept of Buddhism, because Buddhism has a utilitarian character, and that means basically being beneficial to the majority. And that is why Buddha, in his first advice to the monks, he said, go forth for the benefit, welfare and happiness of many. Happiness and welfare of many is the majority. So that is why a lot of scholars argue that Buddhism has a very strong utilitarian character. So it is not only the individual salvation that is central to Buddhist philosophy, but everybody has a duty to work for the happiness and benefit of many, majority, really, because you can't be satisfying all, but you should strive to work for the benefit of the majority of the society. So that is why a lot of scholars argue that according to Buddhist political theory, a person living in a country has a duty to actively contribute to create a good government. So with good government only, economic prosperity can be achieved, and through economic prosperity only, you can provide a platform for majority of the people to achieve spiritual advancement or spiritual development. Now, then we come to one specific sutta called Agganya Sutta, which is the discourse of evolution of society, state, and kingship. And here, what Agganya Sutta says is that evolution of society, state, and kingship shows when there is no authority, vices increase. There is social strife, theft, robbery increase, and society is in turmoil. The first king was appointed democratically, according to Agganya Sutta. First king was appointed democratically by all the people in that society. And it suggests that it's a republican system that was the first to evolve in the world. And people elected this leader as the need of the hour, as a social requirement to bring social order to that society by electing the leader, electing the king, and they called him Maha Sammata. And actually here, Agganya Sutta is very specific about the qualities of that leader, the people elected. And Agganya Sutta specifically describes that leader as a handsome person, as an able person, and an illustrious person, a virtuous with a person of illustrious background and character. So these are the three qualities of the person that society selected to be their king. And what this Agganya Sutta says is, electing a leader, people should consider these qualities, as otherwise the kingship will fail. Either actually handsome means actually he is attractive to people, people are attracted to him, and then he is able to govern, he has the ability to govern, the aptitude to govern, and then he must be an illustrious person in his conduct. So, but what we have to understand is what were the basic duties attached to that kingship in the early society. There are three basic qualities attached to that leader, and he was specifically supposed to his primary duty is specifically supposed to stop stealing, catch thieves, and banish them. That was the first duties of the king, because when people elected this king and called him Mahasammata, they told him, look, your first duty is to stop stealing, catch thieves, and banish them. So basically, in today's terms, it's basically maintaining law and order. So that is the primary duty of a king or the leader, as described in Agganya Sutta. And then actually as compensation for discharging that duty, only people gave him a share of rice, and that basically giving a share of rice as compensation later on developed into a system of taxation. And people basically, Agganya Sutta suggests that why people pay taxes to a government is with the expectation that the government will maintain law and order. That is the first expectation of the government when people pay up taxes. And so in today's terms, maintain law and order and means also ensuring equal economic opportunities and social justice. Then the Buddha clearly argues that politics is both inevitable and often beneficial. Now in Agganya Sutta, what Buddha argues is basically Agganya Sutta very strongly argues that politics is inevitable. There is no way that one can live without politics. So politics is inevitable and often beneficial. So you have to make sure that politics is beneficial to the people. That is the primary duty of the people. Then Agganya Sutta also suggests that there does not seem to be any other practical alternative to secure social peace without creating a proper political environment. there is no practical alternative to secure social peace. Then to secure social peace, engaging in governance and politics is inevitable, and politics and governance is not only for the people in government, but that is for the entire society. And then then it also means, according to Aganya Sutta, you have a social obligation to contribute to establishing a peaceful and just society, and nobody can walk away from that obligation, according to Buddhist teachings. And electing a ruler with 3 qualities, as in Aganya Sutta, is a social duty cast upon all citizens of a country. And it also means that Dhamma takes its course, and order emerges from disorder, because the first society was in a real disarray due to people engaging in thefts, robberies. So to maintain order, establish order, only the king was elected. So the order emerged from disorder. Then we can pay our attention to Chakravarti Siyanada Sutta, where King Dalha Nemi. Now here basically Chakravarti rules according to Dhamma. Dhamma, once again I want to go back. Dhamma is not Buddha Dhamma. The Dhamma has many meanings, right? Good conduct, behavior, rule of kings, ruling justly, proper system of taxation, all that is included. And it specifically said that wheel treasure in Chakravarti Siyanada Sutta is for a wheel turning monarch. Wheel treasure, one treasure is a wheel treasure. Wheel treasure is largely interpreted as the public opinion. So public opinion, good public opinion about the king is not an heirloom of the father, because the kingship came from father to son, so like that, but it has to be earned. And then Chakravarti Siyanada Sutta always talks about righteous leadership, leader observing 5 precepts and being virtuous. But that does not mean, it does not really mean, we should not confuse this. It does not mean that when there is a Chakravarti or a good leader, it will necessarily provide requisite conditions for salvation or attaining Nibbana. And it does not also mean that without Chakravarti, for a wheel turning monarch, salvation is not possible. Neither is true. So, but Chakravarti is a good ruler who rules righteously, justly, and creating a conducive environment for people to achieve a spiritual progress. And it also says specifically in terms of politics. It specifically says that essential quality of a leader is to give up power at the right time. Giving up power at the right time is an essential quality of a leader, according to Chakravarti Siyanada Sutta. And it also suggests in certain commentaries, you can see references to situations where it suggests that that if the leader is not giving, Chakravarti always gives up power, but if a ruler is not giving up power, then forceful capturing of power is also possible to create a righteous society. If the ruler is not behaving righteously and justly, then and not giving up power, then use of force to capture power is also one aspect that is addressed in Chakravarti Siyanada Sutta commentaries. And then it also speaks about when rulers or authorities fail to alleviate poverty and also introduce reforms on time. If they fail to introduce reforms, social, economic, and political reforms on time, the cumulative effect is the general social decline, and people suffer. Actually, the word used is dukkha, social dukkha, social suffering. People have social suffering. Basically through nepotism, absence of law and order, favoritism, lack of economic freedom, etc. So righteous leader, wheel turning monarch, or righteous kingship is also addressing these points. Does not practice nepotism, establish law and order, no favoritism, and provides economic freedom for people. And then so there are other qualities that come out in Chakravarti Siyanada Sutta. as essential qualities of a leader. The first quality that is essential for a leader, according to Chakravarti Siyanath Sutta, is generosity, pleasant disposition, convincing speech, beneficial conduct, and impartiality. Impartiality, religious and otherwise. That is also very important, because Chakravarti Siyanath Sutta says that the king should not openly favor any religion. He can have his own religion, but he should not show the society that he is favoring a particular religion. That is also an essential quality of a leader, a good leader, as enunciated in Chakravarti Siyanath Sutta. And then going on, actually, if you turn to Rajya Sutta speaks about the possibility of ruling without killing. You know, whether it is possible to rule without killing is one aspect that is brought forth by or in this Rajya Sutta. And then the other very important sutta that talks about politics or political theory of Buddhism is Mahasudassana Sutta. Once again, talking of a wheel-turning monarch, King Mahasudassana. Actually, here this sutta talks about the kingship and 7 treasures. Kingship and 7 treasures to be a righteous ruler. Like in Chakravarti Siyanath Sutta. And the treasures are elephant treasure, horse treasure, woman treasure, gem treasure, counselor treasure, and household treasure. So there are wheel treasure. There are 7 treasures, but actually a lot of scholars are doing a lot of work to find out what exactly is meant by each of these treasures. But the common understanding is elephant is meant by, of course, the wheel is the public opinion, and elephant is the prosperity, fullness, and dignity. Horse is energy and proper use of power. Woman treasure shows productivity of the nation, productivity of resources. Then gem treasure is natural resources and treasury. How do you manage natural resources of a country? And then counselor treasure is how do you heed good advice on all fronts. And then household treasure is basically how do you levy taxation, collect money from households by providing good economic opportunities. And then wheel treasure is basically about elasticity and public opinion. So actually, some people argue that there is in Buddhism there is leadership in mundane life and spiritual life. In spiritual life, the Buddhahood is the ultimate goal, and in mundane life, wheel turning monarch is the highest position one can achieve. Now, actually, some people argue, not a lot, some people argue that there are distinct signs of 8 noble paths, as in spiritual development. We have noble eightfold path, and there is noble eightfold path in ruling a country, as described in this Mahasudassana Sutta and Chakravarti Siyanath Sutta. That is what it shows by with kingship and 7 treasures means 8, and that is the 8 noble eightfold path to governance of a country. That is one argument that is coming out right now. And then actually there are 4 qualities described in this Mahasudassana Sutta as qualities one needs to become a king. Now that's not to remain as a king or remain a king, but to become a king. Now there the 4 qualities are handsome, long life, different countries' political environment, how people elect handsome, long life, free of illness, and dear to Brahmin, people who are dear to religious leaders as the leaders. But that is only to gain power, to become a king. But to remain in power, according to Buddhism, there are other qualities that you need: beneficial conduct, impartiality, free of nepotism and favoritism. So if the king is not practicing those, he will not remain in power. he will fail. The kingship will fail. And we can have a lot of practical examples in the locally as well as overseas. To get to power, you have to have certain qualities, but to remain in power, you have to have certain other qualities. And then Kutadansa Sutta, in the bloodless sacrifice, Sutta on bloodless sacrifice, once again, King Mahavijita story. Here it clearly says that if poverty is the root cause, the poverty is the root cause of all social problems. The government should work on improving economic conditions of people as the first and foremost duty of the government. This Kutadanta stands out in describing how a country should be governed, because if you really read it carefully with commentaries, it really tells you how do you develop agriculture in a country, how do you develop trade and commerce, and then how do you develop public administration, and how do you develop defense. And there are specific teachings relating to each of these 4 areas. And what it says is what it says is that you can have all policies in each of these areas, but none of these policies will work unless the king is righteous and virtuous. And what it says is basically the king should be law-abiding, the government should be law-abiding. Unless the king and the government are not law-abiding, none of these policies, whatever the policies you have, these policies will fail. That's what, in summary, what Kutadanta Sutta says. And that is why in Adammika Sutta, in this wishing stanza, it ends with Raja Bhavatu Dhammiko, because for fields to be prosperous, for harvest to be good, for people to be happy, for timely rain to come, the king and the government should be righteous. So once again, now here what we can see is, once again, everything Buddha ends up in saying, finally, for all these things, the government should be righteous. If there is no righteous government, nothing can happen. So that is why some people argue that politics is very, very central to Buddhism, because finally in all these suttas, Chakravarti Syenada Sutta, Mahasudassana Sutta, Kutadanta Sutta, Adammika Sutta, in all these suttas, Buddha finally says, unless the king is righteous, unless the government is maintaining law and order, government is righteous, virtuous, country will not develop. And no policies will work, whatever the policies you have. And that is why people have a very, very important duty to make sure that the government is behaving in a righteous manner. And he actually actually there are instances where the Buddha got directly involved in politics, and especially there is one instance where in the case of King Vidubhadra, son of King Pasenadikosala, when he vowed revenge and tried to attack Sakyan kingdom, because Sakyans did not keep their promise in one instance, and to take revenge, King Vidubhadra, the son of King Pasenadikosala, wanted to attack Sakyans. And of course, the Buddha is also from a Sakyan kingdom. He was a Sakyan. And 3 times Buddha intervened to stop that war. But 4th time, he did not intervene, because he realized that Sakyans did a wrong thing, and they should pay the penalty for that. And King Vidubhadra attacked Sakyans and annihilated the entire Sakyan clan. So the Buddha also directly got involved in state politics to bring about solutions, but he also failed in certain cases, and he just kept away. And if you read the Jataka story 465, Mitta Mita Jataka, it really tells you how the king deals with inner court politics. King has, I think it was Bodhisattva who dealt with inner court politics. This Jataka story speaks about. Then Then we can also talk about Dasaraja Dhamma, 10 royal qualities. I think my time is up, Professor, right?
No, please go on with the Dasaraja Dhamma.
Yeah, so Dasaraja Dhamma, 10 royal virtues. Actually, I will just briefly go through Dana, Sila, then Parikaga, honesty, integrity, being kind and gentle. Okay, Parikaga is sacrificing everything for the good of the people. Austerity in habits, and freedom from envy, ill will, enmity, patience, non-violence, and non-opposition and non-confrontational are the Dasaraja Dhamma, specifically dealing with politics in Buddhist political theory. Then actually Mahaparinibbana Sutta says, how a righteous king should be treated. It says Chakravarti is worthy of a stupa. Buddha, Pacheka Buddha, Arahant, and a Chakravarti is the only layperson who is worthy of a stupa. And here also Buddha specifically talk about comments the Republican way of government in Mahaparinibbana Sutta. That is why some scholars think that Buddha favored Republican system of government, where he says peaceful assembly, peaceful discussion, and peaceful departure or breakup, and other 7 conditions of welfare. And then finally we come to the Buddhism and political theory. I want to draw specific reference to this Matthew J. Moore's work, recent work, Buddhism and Political Theory, where he also says that Dhamma is a triangle encapsulating spiritual, economic, and political welfare of people. And economic prosperity and security are a prerequisite for spiritual progress. And economic prosperity is possible only under righteous government. And citizens have a duty to elect a righteous leader. And in this work, he says specifically theory of anatta and theory of ethics, theory of self and theory of ethics. The leader should be selfless and ethical in character, who will establish social order and provide economic freedom. Actually, this you can relate to the current environment also, as we see in the breakup or the composition of the economic freedom index, which is broken. If you dissect it, if you dissect the social freedom index, it's a law and order, regulatory effectiveness, size of government, market freedom. That all these 4 points are captured in all these suttas when the Buddha speaks about the way to govern a country and through a Buddhist political philosophy. And then the market freedom, talking about market freedom, there is specific reference in Buddhism to establishing market freedom, and how do you invite foreign investments. Especially there is this example of King Pasenadi Kosala requesting King Bimbisara when the kingdom of Kosala was going through economic hardships. He requested King Bimbisara to send good businessmen to Kosala to revive Kosalian economy through investment. So that is one instance where we find reference to foreign investments taking place, cross-border investments taking place in Buddhism. And so finally, as I said earlier, for spiritual development, there is a Noble Eightfold Path, and for economic and political development of a country, there is a Noble Eightfold Path as described in Mahasudassana Sutta and Chakravarti Siyanada Sutta. So my argument is politics is inevitable and very central to Buddhism, and there is no room for anybody to say, I am only interested in Dhamma, I am not interested in politics. Everybody has a duty to contribute to create a good political environment in a country. And if you contribute, if you make that contribution, if you are willing to make that contribution only, you are called a full citizen of a country. If you are not making that contribution, you are called a limited citizen, like a permanent resident of a country. So to be a full citizen, you have to mindfully engage yourself in politics in order to create righteous government, elect righteous leaders, good leaders, and honestly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mahendra Jayasekere. As is to be expected, it was very comprehensive. You are very well versed with the Buddhist teachings, chapter and verse. and also you will always cause it to be thought-provoking. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I agree fully in that there are many instances, if I may add, where before we open to the floor, where the Buddha says, hurry up and, get on with your practice before famine, before war, things like that, because it says in those situations, you can't achieve spiritual progress. So that is in keeping with what you very much was saying. And in the because in the Dhamma gems to which you have also contributed, we have Kutadanta Sutta because of I think it reflects the times that were reflected in the last Dhamma gems book. There is one on the Dasaraja Dhamma, and there's one on what hunger is, Jigacha Parama Roga, the worst disease, because even for the homeless, the first thing is Pindapata, food is essential. So that way, however, when you said that every citizen has to engage in politics, is it about the ordained?
No.
That is
actually,
a problem.
in home life.
That's right.
Home life, yes, sorry, yes.
Yeah, because that is something we have to stress, because
That's true. Yes,
that is something very ugly that is happening around us in our society.
No, but they are actually, Doctor, the idea is, in fact, actually, we have been strongly arguing and advocating, is that I think Sangha community has a very strong duty to explain this Buddhist political philosophy to people, because we often do not talk about Buddhist political philosophy, because what actually the Sangha community in their preachings also, what they do is basically they talk about spiritual advancement, 4 noble truths and 8 noble noble eightfold path, Paticca Samuppada, and all these things they talk about, little bit of economics, and then they plug in the political philosophy of a particular political party or a political or a politician into that discussion. That is where we have basically, made this biggest mistake of not educating people about the Buddhist political philosophy of the need of the lay society to elect good leaders.
Thank you. Shall we open to questions? There is one, can I read from chat, which came quite a while ago, from Neville Kramer, who is in UK. I don't know whether Neville would like to ask the question himself, but what is written here is E.F. Schumacher essay on Buddhist economics. Can it be argued that right livelihood implies Buddhist economics, implies Buddhist governance, implies Buddhist politics, is his question. Neville
Actually, I would think yes, because as I said, they are interdependent and intertwined, because it's very difficult to separate economics and politics. Actually, even in the current context, let alone Buddhist teachings, even in the current context, it is very, economics and politics are inseparable. So Buddhist economics invariably deal with Buddhist politics, because economics cannot work unless there is too much intervention of the state, even in the current environment.
Right. Any questions? I'm sure there are a lot of questions. Any questions, please? Can you raise your hand or unmute and ask the question, please? Looks as if, Neville, do you have anything to add to that reply that you got, the answer?
Excuse me, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, go ahead, please. Sujata, is it?
Yeah, Sujata here.
Yes, go ahead.
I don't think it's relevant at this point. Now, I will listen to this whole talk. It was really interesting. What about our Buddhist monks who are involved in active politics in this country, in Sri Lanka?
Actually,
allowed?
No, it is not allowed. It's not allowed. It's not allowed. It's not allowed. Actually, they can only preach Dhamma. Actually, Dhamma involves politics, but they should speak, or they should teach the political theory of Buddhism.
Yeah.
They should teach the political theory of Buddhism. where they should urge people to consider, what need to be considered in electing a leader.
Right. Yeah, but then again, I mean, it's not been done that way.
I know.
This,
We are trying very hard to change that.
yeah, because they get onto the platform sometimes with politicians.
Which is
And
unfortunate.
So I may be wrong, but that's what I feel. It's not conducive to your speech, really.
No, sure, exactly. That's why actually I'm sorry to say that when we talk about this Buddhist political theory with monks, actually, they are also taken unaware. Sometimes they say, look, we have never heard this before from this angle.
That's right. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much.
We are trying to educate them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sujata. Mr. Jayasekere, Neville Kramer has raised his hand. Neville, go ahead, Neville.
I just want to say that I think that this talk was such a tour de force of the subject, for which much thanks, that it has actually left nothing to ask questions about, which is presumably why the silence of the audience.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
So I have done justice to the topic, Doctor, you gave me.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we also bypassed, you used the correct words and explained the terminology and the gray area and the closeness between politics and governance and where it is what it is and not. Right. That was a very, very interesting, but very, very, Mr. Jayasekere is well known. We know that he is, very well versed with all the Buddhist teachings, and like in the Agganna Sutta, the taxation started, but that was historically speaking, wasn't it? When the Buddha, the historical thing.
Yeah.
And the Chakravarti Sutta actually says poverty was never praised in Buddhism.
No.
Never.
Yeah.
But again, amassing wealth was also not praised, because that somebody called Uggaha came and asked the Buddha that somebody is very rich, he has got this, that, and the other. And then at that point, he mentioned 7 different wealths. Saddha Danam, Sila Danam, Hiriyottapyan Danam, that one. So he mentioned.
But actually, in recently in a Singaloa the Sutta commentary, Professor, I saw that reference has been made to accumulation of wealth this way. Now, sometimes we feel now, say for example, when we refer to businessmen, we think that they never stop. They keep investing. And now Singaloa the Sutta commentary, one commentary said actually, if the businesses are investing now, actually all businesses are not investing just because they want to make money, but to create wealth in the society, and that creation of wealth in the society is dana. Is also part of dana, generosity. Singaloa the Sutta commentary. That's how that's what I read, because that was a very interesting thing, because sometimes we think, when businesses grow and businessmen go and keep investing, and we think they are so hungry and they are greedy. It's not the greed, but if they are thinking of creating employment opportunities and adding value to the lifestyle of the people, that is part of generosity and dana.
Thank you. That's very well clearly put. Very interesting. Right. So,
Mr. Jayasekere, may I ask a question, please?
Sure, please go ahead.
If you look at the countries in the world where there is economic prosperity, stability, and very little political unrest, if you can take as examples the Scandinavian countries or Switzerland, they are not Buddhists, but they know how to manage a society without extremes of wealth or extremes of poverty.
Yes.
So they are in fact practicing Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist theory, isn't it? Buddhist economic theory.
Definitely. Actually, I think the Western world has understood the Buddhist political theory better than a lot of Asian countries.
And as Lee Kuan Yew said, one of the most important things is home ownership. One of the things he created was about 90% home ownership by creating these apartment blocks where even the most poor person can have
and actually more
a
than
home.
that, Sudhanta, more than that, now actually Lee Kuan Yew's foundation of the society is based on ethics. Actually Buddhist ethics. Now, why I am saying that is, if you take, actually I have spoken publicly also about this, if you take the Ministry of Education outcomes in Singapore, the Singapore Ministry of Education's outcome, what they treat as, major outcomes, their primary education outcome. First outcome is when the child comes out of grade 5, he or she should know how to distinguish right from wrong. More than language, maths or science or whatever, the first outcome is the student should know how to distinguish right from wrong. When he comes out of school, he should know what moral integrity is. More than anything else, not going to university or anything else, but moral integrity. And number 3, when the student is coming out as a graduate, he should know to stand for the right thing. Now that is basically ethics. So Singapore society is founded on ethics. The government is founded on ethics, and the leadership is founded on ethics. So those are the 3 outcomes of Singapore Ministry of Education.
Thank you. And also in Japan, one of the recent lectures I heard was that children are taught how to clean their toilets and behave as good citizens even when they're small children.
That's true. Sure.
So that is also part of society, isn't it?
That's
part
true.
of
Exactly. Unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, none of these are outcomes.
So is it that Sangha don't know all this to teach normal people?
Actually, unfortunately, in our Pirivan education system, there are 850 Pirivaners in Sri Lanka. About say 40, roughly about 35, 40 Pirivaners for each district. But this Pirivan education system is so bogged down with teaching only this spiritual philosophy. They have very little understanding of how economics and politics contribute to creating that spiritual development path. And actually, most of these concepts we are talking of are unheard of by monks. Actually, it's a very sad situation. They themselves admit that there is a serious lacuna in the Pirivan education system in Sri Lanka.
Shouldn't organizations like YMBA take a lead?
No, actually, we are trying. Of course, we are trying to spread our tentacles, but it's a big task. Actually, we are engaging with Buddhist monks these days in a big way to see how we can contribute to develop that knowledge in Pirivan education. It's not easy because the government does not support that. The government does not support this discussion. Law-abiding government discussion, law-abiding leadership discussion. The government itself is not supporting.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed your talk.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So that was a very, very valuable time spent with, and I hope Mr. Mahendra Jayasekere will hear more and more from you in the future on such topics. You have always brought forward topics that are, bordering on controversy, but it's very solid because you are backed with all your references, and it comes through as very, very, very relevant. So in the absence of any other questions, shall we close the meeting? Reminding once again that next week, once again, we have a very interesting topic. We all know there's a Hippocratic oath, and likewise, there are many religions that have an oath for doctors. A Buddhist doctor's oath, should a Buddhist culture have one, is what is proposed or anyway brought forward for discussion by Venerable S. Dhammika, who is an author of about 40 books. He's in Australia, known as S. Dhammika, Sravasti Dhammika Thero. So please join. That will be another thought-provoking session. And there's a panel discussion also on medical ethics and Buddhism. And Mr. Mahendra Jayasekere, if you are free, if you could join, I'm
Yeah,
sure you will
sure.
be a very valuable
Okay.
asset.
Yeah.
Thank you. With
Yes,
all that, and thanking Mr. Jayasekere and all the other listeners for having joined today. Let us end this meeting in the usual way by transferring merit to the Devas and the departed. So join me then in the familiar stanza. Ittavatata ammehi sampadam punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavatata ammehi sampadam punya sampadang sabbe Bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavatata ammehi sampadam punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasatta ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyam tang anumoditva tirang rakkantu sambuddha sasanang. Akasatta ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyam tang anumoditva tirang rakkantu buddha desanang. Akasatta ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyam tang anumoditva tirang rakkantu mam paranti. Idam me nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. Idam ho nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. Idam ho nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. With that, let us then end this meeting and wishing everyone a happy, safe, and fruitful week until we meet next Saturday. I will then end the meeting. Thank you once again, Mr. Jayasekere and everyone who joined. Thank you.